Good evening, friends. I'm Piali, and I welcome you all to this webinar session. Today we have Mr. Deepak Sharma with us. Deepak is the director and principal consultant of Organic Consulting, and he has over 18 years of experience in this field. Deepak is passionate about solving agile challenges in larger and more complex enterprises. And today he will be talking about how to influence both lean and DevOps to drive efficiency in the organization. This will be a 1 hour session. For the first 40-45 minutes, Deepak will be going with his presentation. And after that, for 15-20 minutes, he will be addressing the questions asked. So this is the structure of the session. Now I won't be taking more time of yours, and I would request Deepak to start his session. Deepak, over to you.
Thank you, Piali. So very good evening to everyone. So the session which I'm going to take today is around Lean and DevOps and how to use a combination of both Lean and DevOps to drive efficiencies across the organization. So jumping straight into the agenda, this is what I intend to cover over the next 1 hour. We will have a very brief look at what is Lean and what is DevOps. So we are not going into the details or in depth into those, but we'll just touch upon this from a surface. So just to drive home, what exactly is Lean and DevOps. Then we will look at why are organizations adopting Lean, Agile, and DevOps concepts. What are the business benefits from that? So we'll briefly look at that. And then finally, we'll come to the agenda where I want to drive 5 things, which you should really care about when you implement Lean, Agile, and DevOps in your organization. So we'll go through a concept which is called theory of constraints. Then we look at another tool which is called value stream map. Then we'll jump on into key DevOps patterns and practices. The fourth topic which I want to cover is around metrics, and the fifth one is around culture. So these are the 5 things which I want to touch upon during our workshop. And finally, I'll give you a very brief overview of an industry case study where we essentially used these concepts and in terms of driving the efficiencies in that specific organization. So I'll briefly talk about that case study and what we did, and what were some of the metrics, what were some of the benefits, and how we went about that. So I'll talk about that case study as well, which has primarily used some of these specific concepts that will give you a sort of flavor of how you can do it in your specific organization. So that's the agenda which I want to cover. A very brief introduction about myself. I'm basically an Agile, Lean, DevOps practitioner, coach, consultant, learner. And these are some of the pictures. I'm also passionate about running, so I'm also a marathon runner, participating in events, in marathon running events across India and across the globe as well. So ran few marathons, half marathons. So that's more on my personal side. Okay. I also want to briefly touch upon some of the working agreements. As Piali had mentioned, we'll devote like the 3/4 of the session more around the concepts which I want to put forward, and the last 10 to 15 minutes, we can open it for questions. Any specific doubts that you have, or any specific things which are not clear, we can talk about that, and we can have an interactive discussion. If we are short of time, beyond that, considering it's limited time that we have, what I and Piali were discussing was that we can also have a discussion forum around it after the session, where you can post your questions, and I'll be happy to answer this in an offline mode. Okay. So let's move on to this specific slide. If you look at this specific slide, and if you look at the gentleman which is on the right hand side, this is a typical organization. When we work in teams, when we work in typical organizations, we are so much busy with our day-to-day work, with our sort of urgent priorities, that are there within the organization, within our team, within our portfolio, that we really don't look at innovation. We really don't look at some of the things which are happening around us, and how we can use those to drive improvement for our business, for our teams, for our customers. How can we leverage some of these things? So this is really a request that when we are going through this session, have a very open mind. Try to pick up the things as they come, and the real benefit will really come when you experiment this, when you execute some of these things going forward in your organization, in your teams, and try to see how you can leverage some of these things for improvement within your organization. So let's look at some of the lean principles. Again, I'll, as I mentioned, I'll very briefly touch upon that, but it'll be good to sort of just brush up some of these concepts which are there around lean. Now, if you look at lean basically came from Toyota Production System, and lean essentially is the if you can look at, is primarily the source from where Agile, Scrum, Kanban, XP, all of these things have really come from lean. So lean is really the originator from where all of these frameworks, all of these mindset, all of these culture things, and all of these practices, tools, everything has come from lean. So let's touch upon some of these lean principles. When we apply it to software development in our organization, what are some of these principles? The first principle is essentially respect for people. And when we look at this, it is primarily talking about respect for our teams, respect for our peers, respect for our customers, valuing collaboration, having trust in them, empowering them, giving them accountability, giving them responsibility. So it's more around how we can sort of leverage and collaborate and work together for the success of our organization. So that's the first principle. The second principle is really around eliminating waste. And when we talk about this specific principle, what this principle essentially talks about is around the identification of waste. So when we look at our organization, when we look at our business processes, what are some of the waste that we are sort of producing within our organization, and then how can we reduce, how can we eliminate really that specific waste? That's the second principle which lean talks about. The third principle essentially is talking about building quality in. And when we talk about this, it says that quality is not really a responsibility of a QA team or of some testing team which is there in some remote corner. It's really where each and every person of the organization is responsible for quality, is responsible for the overall product, how it comes out in terms of features, in terms of the non-performance requirements. So everybody is sort of responsible for that. And when we really build our products, it's more around left shift testing strategy, where we look at it right from the time when we conceptualize the product, when we design the product. Testing is not something which is left towards the end, towards the right side. It's really embedded as we go into this process of development. It's primarily spread all across and is the responsibility of everyone. The next principle is talking about creating knowledge, and when we look at this primarily talks about having feedback loops at various intervals throughout the life cycle of the development of our product, of our services. It's more about taking earlier feedback. And that feedback could be a manual feedback, could be feedback from our teams, from our customers. That feedback could be from our automated tools, from our monitoring systems, from our continuous integration, from our continuous deployment. from our various monitoring mechanisms that we have in our non-production or production environment. So it's really getting information and creating knowledge, and then making decisions out of it. So that's the fourth principle. The fifth principle essentially talks about deferring commitments. And when we talk about this principle, what it doesn't mean essentially is that we are procrastinating the decisions. What it essentially is talking about, that when we operate in a complex business environment where there is cutthroat competition, there is a lot of uncertainty. So we essentially try to defer our decisions to a specific point where there are only where there is only a few alternatives which are available with us for us to make a decision. So it's really around deferring the commitments, not really committing to a specific course of action, but it's really keeping our options open and then trying to get as many data points, as many feedback loops as possible, and then taking a decision which works really well for in the interest of the organization and of our teams. The next principle talks about delivering as fast as possible. So what it essentially talks about is, whenever we are delivering a product or services to our customers, our delivery cycle should be such that we should be able to deliver the prioritized set of features, set of commitments that we want to do as early as possible in the cycle, so that we can get again feedback from those things, and then which we can then build and bake it into our cycle, and then take any specific action which is required from that. And finally, when we look at the last principle, that is really looking at optimizing the whole. This principle is essentially talking about a systems thinking. It's really talking about the entire business process, looking at it, and then trying to see where exactly are the bottlenecks, and then working through that, working through those constraints, through those bottlenecks, and trying to improve the overall business process, rather than just looking at one or two specific things which may or may not add a lot of value. So it's really looking at the entire business process in its entirety, and then working to improve that. So those are the 7 lean principles of software development that we should be aware of. So again, this is a very brief introduction. The next slide here is talking about some of the waste. So if you remember, one of the principles that we talked about was eliminating waste. And before we eliminate waste, we also first need to identify what is the waste. So if you look at this specific slide, it is talking about some of the wastes which are there that we regularly sort of face in software product development. So if you look at inventory, is one of the waste which is considered as one of the wastes in manufacturing. And if we apply it to software development, it's primarily partially done work that we have within our system is essentially a waste, because unless and until we don't deliver that product, unless we don't deliver that feature into our hands of customers, that is considered waste. Overproduction in manufacturing is equivalent to extra features. So if we try to build extra features which the customers really don't care about, or which are in a very low priority from our customers' perspective, that is something which the customers really don't need, is again is considered a waste. Extra processing that we have within our life cycle, where we have like non-value add meetings which really don't add any value. And if we have a lot of distributed teams where there are a lot of hops which are there in our life cycle, so that's considered extra processing. In software development, it's called as relearning with a lot of hops which are there, and this is again considered as a waste. Motion in manufacturing is equivalent to handoffs. So again, if we have teams at different locations, and if we pass the baton of work from one team to another, from another to another team, that is again considered as waste. Transportation, equivalent of manufacturing, is task switching, when people work on multiple projects, multiple jobs at the same time. There is a lot of task switching which happens, which is again considered as waste. If there is waiting time in our life cycle, which is again equal to delays which are there, it could happen because there are a lot of dependencies with internal teams. There could be a lot of clarifications, a lot of doubts which are there, which should be clarified. Again, that's considered as waste. And again, finally, the defects which are there, which happen in our life cycle, those are considered waste because things were not done correct at the first place, and hence there is rework which is there, which again adds to cost and timelines and all those things. So that is again considered as a waste. So these are the 7 wastes which are there in software development. And if you if you apply that, the second principle that we talked about, eliminating waste. So again, these are some of the things which you need to have or need to have an eye on when you work in your teams, when you work in your projects. And if you see that these are some of the things which are happening around, that's the first step that you need to take in terms of identify it and then trying to see how we can remove that. Okay, now that we are done with a bird's eye view around lean principles, let's look at DevOps thinking. Now, all of you are familiar with agile way of working. Now, what agile mindset did was it brought the business people and the development guys to work together in a very collaborative, coherent way, where we had a business person with a business view of it, which was called a product owner. So product owner is really essentially is part of the team, and then you have a scrum master or an agile leader which work along as one team and get the feedback. That solved one leg of the problem, which was more around product development. But then the second leg is still there, where once the product is deployed in production environment, there is a separate operations team which is there, which is responsible for infrastructure, for maintenance, for operations, for support, bug fixes, and some small enhancements. So there is really an operations team which was really sitting outside of the development life cycle, and which had got a lot of dependencies on the development team, and then the business guys. Once the product moved out of the development shelf life cycle and moved into the production environment, and once the customers start servicing and start using that specific product and service, the business guys really were dependent on the operations team, and then the operations team, because of the handoffs and because of their late involvement and a lot of dependencies of development with operations, of operations with development, this collaboration, which we look at it from a development to the ops team and to the business guys, was sort of lacking, and hence what was happening essentially was, while the development was sort of ironed out with agile, with the business and the development guys, the second leg of development, operations, and business, that was not really resolved. That was still having a lot of lead times, a lot of dependencies, and a lot of issues which were there. Where this DevOps movement came into picture, that how can we leverage business, development teams, and operation guys to work together in a seamless manner, because in operations world is where the actual value of that product and this is used by the end customers, and hence we need to have a seamless integration between business, dev, and ops, and that's where this DevOps thinking, DevOps revolution sort of kick-started. This is the next slide. Essentially, is giving you a very bird's eye view of some of the tool chain which is used in the DevOps world around development, around some of the testing tools, around some of the configuration management, collaboration, infrastructure, logging. So I'm not going into the details of all of these things, but there is an entire stack of tool chain which is available, which helps us a lot in terms of automation, in terms of infrastructure provisioning, in terms of building a continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment pipeline, and helps us really move forward in terms of bridging that dev and the operations gap, which we talked about a little bit before. Okay, so now if you look at it, the old way of working was essentially where the developers, they used to build, and then in a traditional waterfall world, we had then sort of a system integration testing team, which was really outside of the development, that had like a QA manager, which used to test all the integration points, and also used to check all the functional sort of test cases and scenarios to a very detailed level, along with the integration points. So system integration testing was really about the integration points, and then a very high level into the into the functional aspects. And once the system integration testing was done, then we really used to give it to perhaps another testing team, which is called business testing or a user acceptance testing, which was primarily the business testing team, which really didn't care about the integration or the low level business test, but they were really testing end-to-end scenarios of how overall business process used to work. And once everything was sort of signed off in the UAT, then we had a release a team which got involved, and then the release team sort of worked on it. So that was a traditional way of doing the product development. But if you look at the new way of doing it, essentially is where there is only one team which is responsible for entire build, test, operate, release. So there is essentially a one coherence between the development, the operations, and the business guys, who are just working as one team, and everything goes through this, and they are sort of self-contained, where they can do end-to-end work across the life cycle. Okay, let's look at now that we are a bit familiar on the lean and DevOps principles. Let's look at why are organizations moving towards this. So I'll take a specific short quiz. If you look at it, companies, if you look at the past decade or so, companies like Facebook or Google or Tesla, Spotify, they have really, or for that matter, Airbnb, they have really revolutionized the way of how businesses operate. Their technology is not only following lean, agile, and DevOps, but their entire business process, the way they run their business, everything is around customer development, design thinking, lean, agile, DevOps. Everything is sort of bundled together, and these sort of companies are giving a run for the money with the traditional companies, the traditional product development, traditional manufacturing, traditional automotive car companies. They are really disrupting the way the industries and the business sort of work. So what has happened is that the traditional organizations, the traditional product development, the traditional enterprise IT companies, when they sat back and look at the success of these companies, they have realized how they are sort of operating, and the key things which are coming out of it is really how they operate as the lean team, how they operate in agile, how they operate in DevOps. And that's where a revolution has started in terms of trying to adopt some of practices, some of these mindsets, some of these principles, which is making Google, Facebook, Spotify, Tesla successful. It's now moving into the enterprise and the corporate world. Let's look at one of the biggest success stories in terms of lean, agile, and DevOps, which has really been Salesforce, Salesforce.com. Salesforce really did a big bang agile, lean, and DevOps transformation somewhere in 2009, and then post that transformation for successive sort of 5 years, it was called the most innovative company in the world. And if you look at these were some of the business outcomes which got delivered. And if you look at in terms of the feature which got delivered, in terms of increase in productivity, in terms of decrease in cycle time, the number of releases which got deployed into production. So these were some of the business outcomes which got delivered from Salesforce.com. The next slide essentially is talking about how does it impact an organization, because at the end of the day, organizations are there to make money, to improve their top line, to improve their profitability and bottom line. So while we talk about lean, agile, and DevOps, how does it really impact the organization? So this essentially picture is talking about a balanced scorecard, and it's really a strategy map in terms of when we adopt some of these things, how does it impact the overall organization. So if you look at the number 4 row, which is really the learning and growth, where when you apply product thinking, when you apply design thinking, customer development, when you really plan and execute in an agile specific way, when you have DevOps tool chain, when you practice test-driven development, and when you have a very collaborative sort of culture with your business and with your ops team, once you have this learning and growth and the way you work is sort of solidified the organization across the teams, then when you go to number 3, it starts to have a positive impact in terms of your processes. So your predictability improves. Predictability is essentially your do-say ratio or your on-time sort of on delivery of your releases, of your work products which you're working on. Velocity is another concept, which is in terms of how you're progressing with your, or how much volume of work that you deliver. That sort of improves the overall quality when you look at it in terms of your stability, in terms of your defects. That sort of improves with your DevOps and tool chain and your engineering practices. So once it has a positive impact on your processes, then it starts to have a positive spin on your customers in terms of value delivery. So essentially you deliver only those features which really the customers care about. There is a reduced cycle time, so which essentially talks about the time which it takes to deploy a feature into production. From conceptualization to production, that gets reduced. You have an improved customer score, you have an improved employee score, and overall your operational environment in terms of defects, in terms of your availability of the servers, in terms of incidents or bugs which gets reported is drastically reduced. Once it has an impact on your customers in a positive way, then you have loyal customers. Not only do you have loyal customers, you also attract customers from different, because the product or the feature or the service that you do gets very good feedback. You are also able to attract talent people in your organization. And once you have all of these things, it starts to have a positive impact on your financial, on your top line and bottom line. So this is how it impacts from a strategy map perspective across the organization. Okay, so let's look at theory of constraints. That's the first thing which I wanted to share with you in terms of what is theory of constraints and how you can leverage this concept for your organization. So theory of constraints, if you look at the lean principle, we were talking about optimizing the whole. So it's really based on that specific principle where it looks at how do we look at a system thinking, how do we look at an organization as a whole and try to improve the overall business process, but not just only a specific siloed department or a specific team, but it's really looking at the entire business process and trying to improve it. These are some of the steps. These are 5 steps which are there in terms of identifying the constraint, exploiting the constraint, subordinating to the constraints, elevating the constraint, and then repeating this till we sort of have a continuous improvement overall. Let's look at a very, very simple case study in terms of how we can leverage theory of constraints. So let's look at this sandwich factory which is there. Which is to bake a bread. So essentially these are the various steps which are there. So you bake a bread, then you fill the sandwich, and then you package the sandwich. So that's what the business process is. And if you look at the goal, what is the goal of the system? The goal of the system essentially is that it should produce the maximum packaged sandwiches for their customers. That's essentially the goal which is looking at. Now, if you look at this, when we are baking the bread, so this is one department which is baking the bread, which is producing 300 sandwiches. If we look at the filling team, that is producing 125 sandwiches. And then if you look at packaging team, it is producing 200 sandwiches. Now, if you look at what is the throughput of the system, the throughput of the system is essentially 125, which is the smallest one. Right, so that is something which we identify that okay, even if you look at baking the bread, even if you sort of try to optimize it and bring it to 400 sandwiches, or if you look at the packaging thing, if you try to improve the packaging from 200 to 400, it will still not solve the problem because our constraint is around filling the sandwiches, which is at 125. So that's really the constraint. So the first step essentially is identifying the constraint. Once we identify the constraint, then what we do is we exploit the constraint constraint, we try to find out a means in terms of how we can improve, how we can optimize some of the work which we are doing at without any investments. So we look at, maybe trying to automate some of the things. We try to look at, how we can operationalize it in a much more effective way, how we can improve efficiency around it. So for example, taken here, when we look at if we, for example, if we sharpen our knives, we are able to move it from 125 to 150 sandwiches. That's very significant investment into that specific team. Now, when we look at this, if you look at the previous one again, even if we move it to 150, still the baking and the pack, which is again a waste in the system. So what we do is we make it standard, which we make it 150 as the baking the bread, and we make it packaging also as 150. This is called subordinating the constraint. So where we try to optimize the flow and try to remove the waste wherever possible. So we are removing the waste from baking and from packaging, and then we are trying to optimize the flow to 150. Now let's look at the case that if we elevate this constraint, which essentially means that if we try to purchase a machine, or if we try to have few more people here into it, and if we try to increase the throughput of this from 150 to 225 sandwiches. So now what will happen is, if we improve it to 225, then what we do is we look at packaging now. So packaging now becomes a constraint, because this filling the sandwich has really improved, has really leapfrogged to 225. But even if it produces 225, it won't help, because now packaging is the constraint with us. So that's where now we look at, now we focus our energies on packaging, and then we look at how do we improve packaging. So that's really called theory of constraint, where we look at essentially the entire business process. We look at where exactly is the constraint, we focus on that, we exploit that, we subordinate to it, and then we elevate that constraint, and then we repeat it. So it's basically a mechanism of looking at the entire applying systems thinking, entire business process, identifying the area which is the weakest link, and then trying to improve it. And once it has improved to a significant level and it is no more a bottleneck, then we try to improve the second one. So that's the whole concept of theory of constraints. The second concept that I want to talk about is value stream map, which is again somewhat related to theory of constraint. While theory of constraint is more around systems thinking and gives you a principle in terms of looking at it from an overall perspective, value stream map is really a tool which you can use in your organization. And this is just one example where you try to look at it from the time you got an idea from a customer till the time that feature gets deployed, and then you try to bucketize it. You try to look at it in terms of the different steps which are there, which you have to take the journey from an ideation until the time it gets into the hands of the customer. And then once you put all of these things together, then you look at the value added time in terms of where you do a value add on that specific step versus the non-value added time. So if you look at it, if you look at the steps below, the value added time is something which is written at the top, and the non-value added time here is written at the bottom. So this essentially is the wait time. And if you look at that lean principle where we talked about some of the waste which were there, so waiting time was again sort of a waste here. So what we do is we try to look at where exactly is the constraint, and then we try to apply theory of constraints to it, and then we try to improve it. So if you look at it, overall cycle time essentially is a metric which talks about end-to-end in terms of ideation till it got deployed into the hands of the customer. How much time. So if you look at this, the cycle time is 578 days. The value added time is 188, and the non-value added is 390. So if you look at this flow efficiency of this is overall 188 over 578, which is roughly like 30%. So there is a possibility of improving this overall business process by at least 2.5 times. And this is where value stream map as a tool, along with the system thinking and along with this theory of constraint, you can use this together to identify where exactly are the constraints, and then you can try to improve that. Okay, next I want to talk about a little bit about automation, because automation is an inherent and a very core part of lean DevOps. I just wanted to share here the key enterprise DevOps patterns and practices. Again, these are something which came out from Gartner. But if you essentially look at it, it is essentially talking about from here, looking at small batches, looking at automated builds, and then looking at automated testing, continuous integration, continuous testing, continuous delivery and deployments. And then if you look at it, creating infrastructure as a code where you are using tools such as Chef to automate your infrastructure deployments. Your teams which are there, they are sort of enabled so that they can build the infrastructure, they can build those monitoring tools on their own. So this is primarily talking about developer as a self-service, and we have continuous monitoring in our non-production production environments, and this is the integrated tool chain which is there, which is driving this automated build, continuous delivery, and then continuous release and deployments. And then if you look at it here, it is talking about from a people aspect, it's talking about full stack engineers, which is essentially about T-shaped developers, where they are like generalists and as well as specialists in that specific area. And it is talking about autonomous teams which can take really end-to-end work on their own, which are integrated. And then if you look at it, it is testing everything which is there. Chaos Monkey, this is again, these are some of the tools which are used by companies such as Amazon and Google to test their infrastructure on a continuous basis. They try to break and inject things into their infrastructure, which tries to create panic in the infrastructure world, and then it is using machine learning, and it tries to detect those defects, those bugs, and try to heal it on its own. This is talking about some of the metrics which we need to measure at a development level. If you hear, it's talking about test-driven development and reducing the technical debt as less as possible, and then delivering continuous flow using small batches. So again, these are few patterns and practices which we need to enable from an automation perspective to really drive the benefits for the organization. Next, we look at some of the metrics which are there, again driving home from the concept that unless and until we are not able to measure anything, we'll not be able to improve. And hence metrics is really a very, very key part which it plays in terms of trying to give you a dashboard in terms of where you are currently in your life cycle and what can be done to improve it. So really, if you measure metrics, you can really look at how do we improve it. So as from a goal perspective, you need to really look at the overall goals and then define the metrics, and then try to improve it. So that's really now if you look at some of the metrics which are there, the first metrics is around the speed, which is essentially early and continuous delivery, which is again, if you look at from the lean principle, was a principle where it was talking about deliver as fast as possible. And so if you look at the speed perspective, the lead time and the cycle time, this is something which we talked about. So cycle time is really an end-to-end time from conceptualization till production, and lead time is really within that specific sort of vertical or within a specific department, how much time it takes. So that's really the lead time. So we need to measure the lead and cycle time of our deliveries, end-to-end, how much time it takes, and then within those specific buckets where the product moves, we also need to measure that. The second thing it's talking about is deployment frequency. How many times are we deploying it in a specific time frame? That time frame could be in days or in hours. That could be in a week or in a month. So that really is talking about how fast and how efficient our continuous delivery, our continuous deployment pipeline is. So deployment frequency is another one metric which you should really measure. Deployment speed is another metrics which essentially talks about how you sort of what is the speed of your deployment. I've seen organizations where deployment happens really across 1.5 days, where there is an elaborate sort of plan, and then servers are shut down, and then they're brought up, and then in between the deployment takes like a couple of hours. So and again, if you look at companies like Facebook or Google or Amazon, they do like hundreds and thousands of deployment in a day. So that's really talking about their frequency and their speed, with which they are efficiently deploying that. So again, deployment speed is one metric which you need to measure. Going over the next step, which is around quality. Quality is very, very paramount in terms of how you look at how the features are sort of developed, how they are meeting the acceptance criteria of your releases, both in terms of your definition of done, both in terms of your functional and non-functional aspects. So really, if you look at it, the number of incidents and defects, we talk about how successful they are in terms of achieving the end goal which the customer really cared for. Deployment success rates are really talking about the deployment failures and the deployment successes which happened. And then the change failure rate is essentially talking about how successful is that specific change which went into production. Moving on to stability, it's talking about more in terms of from an operational perspective. It's talking about mean time to detect incidents. How much time are we taking to detect an incident or a bug in a production, non-production environment? What is our mean time to recover a specific component, a specific system, or a specific application? And then mean time to restore service is essentially when you detected a bug, and then finally, when you were able to sort of finish that and restore the service back into the hands of the customers. So those are really some key metrics which you need to look at and measure from stability perspective. And then culture really is in terms of how collaboratively you are sort of working as a team between business, dev, and operations. What is your NPS of your customers? How is the customers looking at it? How are your team members and employees looking at using some of these specific tools? So again, measuring this is very, very important. Once you measure this, you look at it from your goals perspective. What are your goals? And then you try to continuously improve on these metrics to reach the goals which have been set by the organization. Okay, when we look at lean and DevOps, it's not only about processes, not only about automation and tools. There is a large part to it which is really around the culture in terms of how we operate as a team, how we collaborate, how we are giving our feedback, how the leadership team provides safety and air cover to the teams. A lot of this is related to experimentation, to really continuous delivery, to really continuous improvement. So there may be times where the teams may fail or the teams may not get the desired results, but overall still the collaboration is there. And then overall how protected do they feel in terms of giving their feedback and voicing their opinion in terms of how they work. So really culture is very, very important in terms of how we collaborate across dev, operations, and business guys, how we are able to give our feedback for continuous improvement. If we look at this is a Schneider culture model which essentially is talking about 4 quadrants. Now if you look at the x-axis, this is more around people oriented versus company oriented. So this is where it's very, very oriented around companies and policies. This is more around personal, at a personal specific level, people dependent. If you look at the y-axis, this is where it's more around reality and more around what is going to happen in a real specific way. If you look at this axis, this is more around possibility. It's talking about endless possibilities and the way to sort of create it. Now, if you look at an organization, if you try to map their culture, most of the organizations will have some parts to it across all these 4 culture domains. So it is more around. So if you look at this extreme top right quadrant, this is the control culture where where there is a lot of hierarchy, there are a lot of processes, there is a lot of stability and order, and it really wants no sort of surprises. Everything is sort of tight leashed and sort of controlled. If you look at on the other side here, on this quadrant, on the top left side, this is more around collaboration, where there is a lot of trust, there is a lot of people specific aspects which are there, where a lot of interaction happens across the teams. There is a lot of partnership, there is a lot of synergy across, and while it is towards reality oriented, it's towards how we work as a team, but it is very, very people oriented. Now, if you look at on the bottom side, on the bottom right, this is more around competence. This is sort of looking at rewarding, having the best people in the organization, rewarding meritocracy, having a lot of looking at building the best things, looking at achievement, rewarding achievement, and really looking at product development more as a craftsmanship, more as creativity, more as sort of doing the best for the specific clients. And if you look at this on the bottom left hand side, this is called cultivation culture, where essentially what happens is that we give the teams a sort of accountability that this is what your goal is, and then we really leave it to the teams to decide how they want to do it. And then we encourage them, and then there is a lot of creativity which is there. There is no set pattern of doing it. The team tries to figure it out on their own, and during that journey they grow. Now, when we talk about a lean, agile, and DevOps organization, essentially this quadrant, which is talking about the control quadrant, really has to be very, very less. I would say it has to be minimized, and a lot of work happens around these three quadrants, around collaboration, cultivation, competence. So for any organization to succeed, apart from systems thinking and the value stream map and the automation and metrics and tool chain and everything which is required, culture is very, very important. So we need to have this collaborative, cultivative, and competence culture for organizations to really succeed. If we have too much control, if we have hierarchies, if we have silos, if we have teams which are running in different direction without a purpose, that's really a sure shot recipe for failure. So again, setting it up from culture, and culture is something which is really driven from the top. So we need to really look at the organization from a culture perspective, and really try to improve from here. Okay, so finally, moving on to the last topic, which is really around a case study, which we did, where we sort of consulted a specific organization. So this was one of the largest offline sort of retailers in the world, and we were really called for a few months of exercise in terms of looking at one of their teams which were trying to embark on a long program, on a long project, and it wanted to use Lean, Agile, and DevOps and try to improve on some of the things which were going on. So what we essentially did was we looked at their entire business process in terms of how they went about in terms of doing development. We essentially used systems thinking and theory of constraints, trying to look at where exactly was some of the constraints. Once we identified that, we essentially used value stream map to look at the area where we need to focus on. Once we did that, then we essentially used a lot of automation, a lot of tooling was used to sort of improve it. There was a lot of focus on building the right structure, on building the right collaboration. So we essentially brought about their development guys and the operations guys really together as one team, along with having the business guys within the team. So it was really a business development and operations team which was really working together to deliver that specific program end to end. So I'll just talk about this. So this is something which we did where we use all of these things, and finally when we built this tool chain along with the team, this is what we did was we essentially used Git, and whenever the developers checked in the code, the build was fired, and then the code was sort of compiled, and then we used SonarQube for doing the static code analysis. Once we did that, then we also used Chef and as an infrastructure as a code, where the team were enabled to set up their own specific environments. Those environments could be a dev, test, stage, production environments. They were able to do it without the support of any other external team. So they were it was primarily a developer as a self-service, where even a developer could sort of kickstart and build that environment. And then it was more like an autonomous team, where the team was doing it independently without the support of any of the team members. So once this was kicked in, then the test was sort of executed, and then it was deployed on a specific test environment, and then all the tests ran completed together. So we looked at the lead time of all of these things. So this was really run as a dojo challenge within this team. Previously, when we looked at the value stream map and when we applied the theory of constraint, this specific work was done in 4 to 5 weeks time, in terms of building the infrastructure, in terms of loading all the platform components, and then in terms of having the release team sort of build it, and then deploying it, and then the testing team really test it, and then giving it their feedback. This entire setup for any new environment would roughly take like 4 to 5 weeks. But when we worked together as one team, once there was a collaborative culture, once we had guys from the business dev and systems team really working together, this entire work, which was earlier taking 4 to 5 weeks, was done in 2 to 3 years. So that's really the power of, and if you try to apply this, this is like, if you look at the improvement, this is like 10,000 times improvement in terms of what was done earlier versus what is happening now. So if you try to use lean, agile, DevOps mindset, if you look at really the culture aspects, if you really look at the automation, if you really look at how we sort of execute it, you can really leapfrog your teams. You can really leapfrog your organization, the way you do product development. It can really multifold to where you are. If you really do it in the right way, in the right spirit, if you really have this lean mindset, if you have the right tool chain, if you have the right engineering practices in terms of test-driven development, your continuous integration, your continuous deployment and delivery pipelines, if you have all of these things really set up, you are really destined for multifold increase in performance of your teams, which can really bring in efficiencies and really help your organizations scale to the next level. If you look at that balanced scorecard strategy map, which I talked about, so that's where it can really lead to multifold improvements in the overall bottom line and top line for your organization. So that's really the case study, and finally we come to an end. I'm just looking at my clock. I think we have still a couple of minutes left. So so I'm open for questions, and we can have a quick discussion now.
Yes, Deepak, we have a few questions here. So the first question I can see here is, which is the more cost-effective approach, and like when you are comparing the traditional and lean DevOps?
Okay, so if you look at this case study again, if you look at the lead time which was there, which was 4 to 5 weeks, which the organization was taking earlier, versus now when we look at a reduced cycle time from 4 to 5 weeks into 2 to 3 years. So really the ROI which the organization gains is really multifold. Yes, there will be increase in costs in terms of setting up this automated tool chain. Yes, there will be costs in terms of learning, in terms of overall implementing these practices, having agile coaches, having DevOps coaches, lean coaches in the organization. Yes, definitely there will be a cost which will be associated to it. Yes, there will be infrastructure. Yes, there will be DevOps toolchain licenses and all those things. But if you look at it from an overall ROI of the organization, it's going to have a significant positive impact on the organization. And that's why all of these organizations which I talked about earlier, which I was talking about, like Amazon, Google, Tesla, Facebook, Spotify, why these organizations are successful, because they have really invested in it. They have really reaped the benefits out of it. And this is now coming from the startup organizations into the traditional corporate enterprise ITs, and that's where now these concepts are being acknowledged and sort of moving forward in terms of implementation.
Okay, so moving ahead to the next question we have. The question is DevOps mean removing or reducing branching? With the two branching, if organization is able to release a weekly basis, will you call it DevOps?
So that again really depends upon what is the release. So if you look at one of the metrics that I was talking about was our release frequency and the deployment time. So that really depends upon the goal that an organization has set in terms of the release and the deployment frequency. So if an organization thinks that we need to really deploy every day, or once in 2 days, or once in or maybe multiple times during a week, so that really depends upon what the goal is for the organization. So if for example, if I look at this, if it is coming to 1 week, if I compare it, say for example, if earlier it was every release was getting deployed say every 1 month, and if I'm able to release it every 1 month, every week, that is really a significant improvement. So that really depends upon what is the goal of the organization and where it wants to be. So it basically needs to compare it from the goal that we had in terms of where we are right now.
Okay. So next question we have, which DevOps tools are most popular among the organizations?
The most popular tools which I've seen in my experience is really Git is used for configuration management. Jenkins is really used as a configuration, as a sort of an integration tool. And then Chef is very popular in terms of Chef and Puppet. Those two are very popular in terms of infrastructure as a code. And then ELKs and Prometheus, they are more used for, and Splunk, they are more used for log file and sort of monitoring specific aspects. If I look at more from a cloud perspective, OpenStack, AWS, and then Azure and Google Cloud, they are very popular in terms of cloud platform. SonarQube is very popular in terms of code quality specific metrics. Selenium is very popular in terms of doing functional specific tests. Test-driven development, any unit testing tool, depending upon the language that you use for software development, is sort of preferred. It could be JUnit, it could be NUnit, it could be DBUnit for databases. So usages of those specific tools, having built radiators in place which are giving you a constant information of how your build is specifically working. So those are some of the tools which are really very popular in the market. And Docker, to top it all, Docker as a container management tool has really sort of taken the leading edge. So these are some of the tools which are very popular in the market.
Okay, so one last question and then we will close the session. The last one we have is, in case of Microsoft development tool, which DevOps tools you suggest?
In terms of Microsoft, we can really look at using NUnit. I think NUnit is there for test-driven development. Jenkins can still work with Microsoft, and then Selenium again is more like a functional specific tool, so it can work in any specific environment. And then Azure is very popular in terms of cloud platforms. So those are some of the tools which you can use in the Microsoft world.
Okay, so Deepak, we have a few more questions left, but on the sake of the time, we need to wrap up the session now. What we can do, we can create a thread on our discussion forum where I will post all the questions one by one, and you can answer to those questions at the same thread, and we can share that link with our participants.
Sure, sure. Okay.
Okay, so we are here now at the end of the session. Thank you so much, friends, for joining. We will be sharing the recording of the session, all the details of claiming SCU and PDU from this session, and the questions we were not able to address here, we will be posting in our discussion forum, and we'll be sharing the link of that thread to all of you. And whoever is interested more in knowing DevOps, for those, we have 2 upcoming batches scheduled in Delhi and Bangalore, 2 days program. 4th and 5th November is scheduled in Bangalore, and 11th and 12th November is scheduled in Delhi. We will be sharing the details of those programs in our closing email. So whoever is interested, do reach to us and we can take it forward. And Deepak, it was really a nice session. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights with us. Thank you so much for the session.
Thank you, Piyali. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all the participants for your time and for your patience. I hope it was a useful session. I look forward to having more sessions with all of you in the near future. Thank you, and have a very great evening.
Thank you. Thanks all for joining.